allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. And now I'd like to ask Sarah to come and read In Flanders Field for us, please.
Can you hear me? That is the key. Okay. I'm going to read from right here. This is In Flanders Fields by John McCrae. In Flanders Fields the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks still bravely singing fly. Scarce heard amid the guns below, we are the dead short days ago. We lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from failing hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders Fields. This was written in 1915 by John McCrae, who fought in World War I. The poppy became known as the flower of remembrance for men and women in Britain, France, and the United States and Canada who died in service for their country.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you very much. And now let's hear our veteran stories, shall we? And I'd like to ask each person who's here representing a branch of service to please stand up, come to the podium if you're comfortable that way, hold a microphone, and introduce yourselves to us. And Rudy, I don't know what order we're going in tonight.
They can make a choice. It's Ron and or yeah, you said you want to go first, right? Darlene? Yeah. So you go ahead, Darlene. You are.
I feel like Darlene is my new best friend. We've been having a good chat. So here we go.
Hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Darlene Woodfield. I was a yeoman first class in the United States Navy, and I retired after 22 years of service. I have been very fortunate and blessed not to have personally experienced some of the challenges as other veterans, such as housing, medical, food, and transportation. That's just the name of few from the long list of challenges. But when I was a veteran service officer with the North Carolina Division of Veteran Affairs, I came into contact with many veterans who face such challenges. I provided advice and assistance to veterans and their dependents to obtain local, state, and federal benefits to which they are or may be entitled to. There are so many veteran stories, real life stories that I can tell you that I came into contact with as a veteran service officer. I remember there was a veteran who served in Vietnam, and he ended up with cancer because he was stationed on the DMZ, because they sprayed agent on him. There was another veteran that served in Vietnam, and he was on the front line. And what he witnessed, which no person should ever have to witness, which is unbearable. To make his pain go away, he would literally pick his fingernails to where he no longer had fingernails because that was less painful than his memories. I spoke with a veteran who was part of D-Day, and the things that I read and heard in school, I was hearing from a veteran who was there. All these stories that I encountered and the veterans that I met, the correlation between all of them, they just wanted support. They just wanted what they felt, what they were entitled to. Now, we can talk about can we support the veterans? There are business and there are organizations that are dedicated to providing assistance to veterans. They can streamline their process. They can make it more accessible. They can make it more fair, meaning that they can educate the public about the benefits that the veterans are entitled to and how to obtain those benefits. But not only do veterans as myself, and maybe you that sits in the audience, need support from them or that segment, but they also need and want support from their family and friends. We also need and want support from the community. Now ask yourself, how can I, as an individual, provide support to a person that I do not know? If you know that that person is a veteran, just walk up to him or her and just thank them for their service. Thank them for their dedication. And most importantly, thank them for their contribution to the freedom that you enjoy. Thank you.
Whoa. Melvin. Ruby says I have 5 minutes, so. Brevity is not one of my strong suits. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ronald Jones. I was a staff sergeant promotable in the United States Army and Army Reserve. I was discharged honorably and wish I'd stayed more than the 13 because I loved my job. I want to tell you a little story about how this all came to be for me, and that was, I grew up in Washington, D.C. in a totally uninteresting neighborhood. And one day I'm walking out of the house, headed to high school, and it was just a beautiful spring day, just perfect. The air was crisp, there were birds, it was a thing. And as I'm standing there on the stoop of my house, I said to myself, you have it really good. And it made me realize that literally there's tens of millions of people who would literally kill for what I took for granted. You know, being able to pray the way I wanted to, being able, or not. My mother was a rebel, she made us. Being able to go to a decent public school and get an education. Being able to walk down my streets without worry that, you know, either we're on the wrong side of a political line or whatever. And at some point I said to myself, you know, what can I do to give back? Because this didn't just happen. And I decided I was going to go into the military right out of high school. And so I went to the induction office, and I took the test, and the recruiter said, boy, go to college. And I was like, really? And he said, yeah, go to college. The Army ain't going nowhere. And I said, I want to do it later. So I did. I went to college, and then I went in. And the Army taught me arguably the most important thing about my American life. And that was that you are all my family. Every one of you. You represented everything I learned in the Army. I remember our basic training unit, we were a mess. We were a hot mess, and we came from everywhere. But when it came time for us to come together, that's exactly what we did. And that's the lesson that followed me through not just my military time, but my civilian working time, my family time. You are my family, period. And I will fight tooth and nail to keep you safe, to keep you able to get your dreams done. Because if I don't get mine done, I won't get mine done unless I look out for yours. And so all that said, it made me understand more than anything else that I had to learn about my country, because thus I'm learning about my family. And there's a lot of kids who don't want to know from their family, but I was a nerd like that. I wanted to know. I was just curious, and I learned so much. And I believe it's one of the things that we as veterans and the family of veterans that we need to do a better job of, and that is passing down the blessing that is this place. And not for any grand political reason, just because you can think of 100 other places on the planet where they got less than half. They got drips and drabs of what we take for granted. It is a God-given blessing, and I was only made better by my time in the military. It's why I really push civics. That's why politics is important to me. I know the way I vote, but I don't begrudge anyone for what they do as long as they're informed. That's my only thing. I always say to people, I might not know your story, I might not have lived your story, but I know at some point in my life, I've hurt like you. I've dreamed like you, I've loved like you, and I just want as good as I can get, just like you. And learning about all the diversity that I learned about in my military unit, in basic training, in my advanced training, it's done nothing but make me care more about my country. I was a counselor in the Army. That was my job. And so I heard the stories when the stories weren't good. And I was there to help, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And just the fact that we right now are in a period in our American history where people are trying to take what we have rightfully earned, which we signed up, we put our hands up, and we said, we're gonna go, and we may not come back. And on the back end, all you gotta do is make sure we can get the best that we need to keep going and live our American dream. Now, anybody who thinks that you can put a dollar figure on that, I got a problem. So all that said, 5 minutes and 7 seconds. All that said, I just want us to make sure we share the beauty and the blessing of this place, and serving in the military is just one way we can do it. But everybody owes. That's just a fact. Everybody owes. How you give back is up to you. Thank you.
Everybody want to take a minute and get right back to IMC, but I know there's some other veterans here, and so we want to make sure if you have something that you want to say, you have a few minutes you can use. Just come up and we got a mic. Some of our mics work pretty good. We were testing before so,
Very good.
yeah. So if you feel inclined, I don't want you to feel like you're pressured though, but if you feel like you want something to say, the podium is yours for a few minutes.
Chicken.
We'll give you a few more minutes to get Okay, Mary. Oh, we have somebody.
Good evening. My name is Joanna. I was in Women's Army, joined right out of high school. Turned 18 Friday, as a training. That was 1968, so 30 years on. And I had the pleasure of paying all the soldiers coming back from Vietnam
So, I'm Orrin Sadler. I was a B-52 navigator, and so I served during the Cold War. We pulled our neutral alert, basically toe-to-toe with the Ruskies, and then the Cold War ended, and we switched over to conventional operations, and we did that. Well, I got called up for a war. I was a planner, so it wasn't like actually being the aircraft. It was a desk job, basically, but I went over to support the B-52 strikes in Kosovo. And I don't know, how many have you guys have dealt with deployments before? It's the old hurry up and wait, right? You know, I'm on base, and they sent me home, and everything, I was all checked in, and they were just like, well, we're waiting for your aircraft to come. I'm like, okay. You know, and then I got the call, and I said, you gotta come now. So I went running down to go in, get ready to go off to England and fight in Kosovo. And my daughter didn't get a chance to say goodbye to me. And she was really upset, you know? And so my wife at the time called the wing commander, and I kind of wish she hadn't done that, but you know, Orrin, you have a little visitor here, and I'm sitting in the chalk, which is where we're waiting to go deploy, and she comes up, she's like crying and everything, and it was just a real touching moment. She wanted to say goodbye to me because she didn't know if I was going to come back or not, you know. So anyway, that's a little bit yet the story that I wanted to tell.
Anybody else get their courage up?
Yeah.
Sir, please.
Richard Smith, I was in Carnersville. I spent 4 years in the Navy, great majority of it on nuclear aircraft carrier Nimitz, which will tell you how long ago it was. It had just been commissioned. Now it's
The oldest
it's the oldest one in the Navy still active duty. The other thing I'd say is, I come across people, I'm sure we all do. If you want to know if someone's a veteran, you don't have to ask them, just listen how tough they talk. They talk tough, they are not a veteran. That is a guarantee. You know, if they talk about, you know, they're tough guys and all this stuff, or if they avoided service because of bone spurs, then you know what you're doing. You know, that is, if you noticed recently, Trump got all these generals and admirals in the room, and he said, you can applaud if you want. Not one of them did. That's courage. Those are the people that we need to be respectful of. So I don't have anything more to say than, you know, I read something the other day that said less than 2% of the country is a Navy veteran, you know. And it's probably the same for the other services. Not everybody could get into the Navy.
We're going there, right? Okay, all right.
But I do think, I do want to say, in terms of veteran services, I go to the place in Kernersville. They are excellent.
Yes.
You know, or they
Yes.
have been excellent until recently, and they're just a little cut back. But you don't have to have a combat injury. You can just go there for medical care. It's a great place, and they really do a good job.
Well for a Navy man. Whole sentences. He started it.
All right, do we have to break this up? No. It's subsided. Can we hear from somebody else, please? Who else would like to speak? Please.
My name is Jennifer Ellington, and I'll start by saying go Army, be Navy. I spent 30 years in the Army, 10 of it on active duty and 20 Service. I retired in 2019. Was fortunate enough to spend 30 years in the Army without ever having to deploy to the Middle East. And that, I say fortunate, because I watched plenty of my friends go, watch them come back with injuries, visible and invisible. And invisible ones are almost the ones that are hard. And I've been struggling for the last several years to contain my level of rage that I have after that's being done to the services that we provide to our veterans. The misinformation that, 50% of veteran disability claims are fraudulent, the kind of numbers that are circulating, the rumors now that all disabled veterans are gonna have to reapply for their benefits. I don't know if that's true. I haven't been able to verify it, but for everybody in here who served, thank you from me for a lot of times, like what I felt like other people were carrying my part of it. For letting that happen. So, thank you. All of you.
Anybody else? All right, Rudy, I think it's your turn.
So, just a few notes that we want to take care of. If you haven't checked in, that's what these QR codes are for. Just check in. And we also have some facts back there that Heather and Sarah will give you. You might want to take those with you. We were fortunate that the Park Recreation, well, not Recreation, it's PART, which stands for Transportation, has given us a lot of things back there. And for those of you that do not know, there's I think it's Route 17 that runs from Winston to VA every hour. Rod does not have to use that because you've got other means. I also understand with my research is that for Mary, tell me if I'm telling you, if disabled vets, 30%. If you register with Uber, then you can get it free rides to the VA. So yeah, I didn't know. Who knew? You know?
Yes, I did check that out ahead of time, and you have to go online, and you have to comply with their requirements for documentation, but apparently they do provide free rides to the VA, which is just a cool thing.
Wow.
If you can get your paperwork together and make that happen.
Fantastic. And also, the bathrooms are right back here, so that needs to take care of that. They're right here. I want to make sure that we all are comfortable. Is it everybody warm enough? Everybody okay? All right. I put my coat on because I was cold. But we have a distinguished group of panelists here that have decided to come out and share Saturday night with us and talk to our veterans and our residents of Kernersville and impart information. Right here, right next to me is Sarah. And next to her is Randy. Now, those two people have got something special that happened to them this week. We had an election in Kernersville. And interestingly enough, Ron and I worked at the poll of the fire station. We had a gentleman come in there. He was a member of the Alderman, and he was just bragging. I mean, he was just saying there's no way he's gonna lose. He really hoped that JR, who was not here tonight, would win. He didn't think he was gonna make it though. And Sarah called me after the post closed. She said, I finished second. JR finished first. And Randy finished fifth. And that guy didn't do all that bragging. He's out of the run.
He lost.
He didn't show. He didn't even show. I'm not gonna mention who he was, but I know these folks up here know who he is.
Well, I'm the ones who lost.
He lost. I also understand from a meeting I went to, and I'm gonna get moving on this, but I also understand from a meeting I went to this week that we have a very popular mayor here. Her name is Dawn, and she's been mayor for a while. And most of her races have been blowouts. I mean, she's 80% of the vote. We had a person who ran who just didn't do anything. He got on the ballot and ghosted. We never, no people could find him. He still got 40% of the vote. It was one of the closest races she's ever been in. If he had spent one effort, we would have had a new mayor. So, this is where we are. The other panelists we have is a very good friend of mine. Her name is Eunice. It's not D. I know that says what it says on your program. D. Washington. D is not here. She had a family obligation, but Eunice Campbell is here. Eunice Campbell is a precinct chair. She is also a secretary, right, of an NAACP. And she's a good friend of mine. She's trying to figure out why I can't get my check to her about joining NAACP. I think it has something to do with me. You know? It ain't got a private relationship. I keep saying, hey, you guys got it wrong. But I don't think we do. I think I got it. But, so Eunice here, she's here representing women, Mississippi women. She's going to talk to us about how our community, throughout our county, can have a tool to use to appreciate and to take care of themselves. So, with that, I'm going to start with the panel talking about the elephant in the room. Okay? How many days is it now? 30 days? 38 days? 38 days. I'll still been that. We learned today that the Supreme Court said you don't have to pay up just yet. We're going to wait a while. We also learned that staff could have been paid because there's money there. But, you know, we know that the person that is in charge of that has decided not to do that. So, panelists, here's our question. And we talked about something that's national. I want you all to comment on this issue with SNAP and how it affects us locally. And what ideas or what plans you have, or what you hope this community will do to help recipients of SNAP and veterans. Anyone want to talk to Ray? You want to start?
Sure. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. Okay. For all of you that wore a uniform, and all the spouses and the kids, for the people that wore a uniform, thank you for your sacrifice, thank you for your service, number one. I want to throw out a few numbers really quickly, just to kind of level set what we're dealing with. According to Veterans Magazine, 20,000 active duty military families are on SNAP countrywide. 213,000 National Guard and Reserve are on SNAP countrywide. 1.1 million veterans are on SNAP countrywide. The very fact that this is the case is an obscenity, but it is, we are where we are with this shutdown. We have got to do everything we possibly can to fill that gap in until these SNAP benefits are restored. When it comes to food drives, working with local retailers to provide discounts, discount meals, anything like that. I mean, this is something we need to gear up for, just like we were having a military action. That's what I'd say about that.
I do wanna also add, I agree with Randy. I did actually see on Facebook today that one of our community members on Teague Lane actually set up a food pantry at her house. She set it up and she's taking donations. People can come and shop it or drop things off. When I saw that earlier today, that just warmed my heart because we are a community. All of us together, everyone, honestly, in America, the world, we are all a community. When I was in college, I actually ran a farmer's market on Clemson's campus. And during that time, I actually learned that there was a program with the USDA that allowed some farmers markets, they would accept SNAP benefits, and some of them received grants that were allowing them to double the money. So if somebody came in with $20 of SNAP, they would give you $40 in tokens and you could go shop at your local farmer's market. I think that that's something that I hope when we actually restore SNAP benefits, that could be something that others could benefit from. I believe Cobblestone Farmers Market in Old Salem did that because for a while I myself was on food stamps. And I think that that's another way that we could help the community.
I think one of the biggest issues is the verbiage being used about people who are on SNAP. I read comments and it is so disheartening, the things that people are saying. So I have been trying, standing on my own 2 feet, to make corrections to people, because knowledge is the key. People are just being misled and don't quite understand the effects of not having food in the house, and that they have demonized people for needing benefits. And I think that is, you have to get out in front of that. You have to get out in front of it, and you have to try to change mindsets. The evilness behind it is, I mean, you can't, denying people food is about as low to me as you could get. You're denying people just nourishment. And there's no excuse in the book for it. I would not agree with anyone, any political affiliation who agreed with that. And I know myself, and I just can't understand how some people, no matter what political affiliation you are, who could agree with that. And I know in my heart of hearts that there are people who do not agree with me politically, who are out there who do not agree with it. I just want them to stand up and say so as well. But I'm an eternal optimist because I am a Sagittarian. And I'm trying to look at the silver lining in this, and one of it is people are starting to really become aware. It is shaking some people who have been way too comfortable for too long. Now you understand what it really means to be disengaged. And you have to take away at the end of the day, when this is over, wow, there are millions of people who are on SNAP or not on SNAP as well, who have been disengaged, who need to take a stand that we're not going to let this ever happen again.
Just to piggyback onto that, the whole idea that the ferocious cruelty with which this administration seems to revel in, they just, I don't know, maybe they get bonus check for ugly. The idea that they're that committed to being this savagely petty, I think as you said, is an opportunity, because a lot of people who wanted to blame minorities or blame women or blame trans or gay or whatever it is for the problems, now they're seeing it come home to their doorstep. And I'm not one of these people who is going to revel in their pain. I want us to hopefully find the opportunity with those who maybe you have some difference with, to try and crack open a new kind of a dialogue. And the last sentence could be, well, maybe they were lying to you the whole time. No, but the idea here is that I think the type of unity that the Democratic Party currently represents, not just the other side of the aisle, but the part that wants people to not hurt nearly as bad. And the only way we really make traction doing that is not when we just watch them and then maybe talk to them now, but make sure they understand that we had their back the whole time. They just didn't know.
Hey, anyone else want to share about that? Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. I am a little remiss. I want to introduce you guys to Miss Baker. I know she kind of snuck in. She did not want anybody to know she's here, but Miss Baker's here, and she is our North Carolina representative of the 74th. So thank you for being here tonight. 77. Yeah, 74th is another story.
Yeah.
That's another story. But thank you for being here. I do appreciate it. So, there's another national issue that's going on that it hasn't touched our neighborhood, but I'm just curious of what some of you veterans and also the panel thinks about how I want to be nonpartisan as I say this statement, really try hard, and how it's been that our military has been used against its people in certain cities. And I think that is a terrible, terrible precedent. Anybody in the audience that have anything to say about that, you're welcome to do so. But then we'll go with our panels, we'll start on this end and we go that way, since last time we started this way, went that way, we'll go this way this time. But if you guys feel strongly about this, please let me hear from you. Okay, so we go to Sarah.
How many of you guys who are in the military were MPs? Any of you? Just out of curiosity, military police?
I was married to one for too long.
The reason why I ask is because in North Carolina, police officers are required to have, it's like 20 weeks of police academy, basic law enforcement training.
384 hours.
Thank you, sir. And, okay, those of you who are in the military, did any of you have basic law enforcement training?
Well, not law enforcement, but every officer gets some level of training on constitutional and military law, UCMA.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So there's a base level there, and I suspect it's required at the NCO level
Yes,
as
definitely.
well.
Okay. That was kind of for my own curiosity, because this has been, as you said, it's a big topic. I believe that if people are going to be enforcing our laws, they should have basic law enforcement training. That's just a personal belief. I would like for communities to be able to handle their own things internally without having to call in people from not the community. I believe that they were calling in Texas for Chicago. I've lived in Chicago for a year. That's very different than like North Carolina. I'm pretty sure it's probably different from Texas and different things. They're bringing in people who are not from the community, and I think the community is critical here.
I just want to say one thing. Where you say being nonpartisan, it's a partisan issue, there's no question about that. The second thing is, we have relatives who live both in DC and Chicago. Both of them said where these National Guard people are, and Trump's careful to use National Guard versus military, active duty military, because there's prohibitions against the use of military, not against National Guard, and that goes back to Reagan and Kent State and all that they would call it. But these areas where they are in Chicago and DC are nothing. There's nothing going on. There's no need for it. It is a pure political stunt. And there is only one party, and I forget who Mr. Jones said, you know, these guys, when you think they can't go any lower, there is no depth to which Trump will not sink. If you give him an opportunity to go low, he will show you his ability to go lower. And we make a mistake thinking these are decent people. These are horrible people, you know, and when you let a child, I was the head of Head Start where we used to live for years. When you let a child starve, and a lot of these children, we had lunch programs in school, and the only reason we had them was because these children got a breakfast, a lunch, and a go-home snack, and that was what they ate for the day. And now you're seeing these Head Start programs having the same issues. So there is one party that is doing this, it is one group of people, and they do not care. And what I've seen it with gay people who Republicans are anti-gay until their child comes on. And it's the same thing here. Now that their SNAP benefits are cutting out and they're hungry. My brother lives in a redneck, he calls it a redneck area out of the mountains of Pennsylvania. They have not elected a Democrat in 20 years. When Kamala Harris was running for president, they literally had a parade where they had a chain around a black woman dressed as her. This is where he lives. I just want to mention it. This is where he lives. The Democrats swept every office last this time. They haven't elected a Democrat in 20 years, so it can be done. We need to call out these people for what they are. That's all. Sorry.
And just to piggyback on that, my brother-in-law and his husband, they have our cousins too who live in DC. They love DC. They're already making plans to leave, and that hurts me, but also knowing that inherently how Sebastian as a 2-year-old is starting to grow up and to perceive the military, even though that is not the real reflection, but like how a generation of people will be raised to have fear of the military as opposed to respect as the way that it should be. Like that really hurts my heart because that is hard to unlearn at 40 years when you're seeing those in your different communities. And I think just people being there, following orders and being there at the same time, like that self-reflection back is really hard to walk back, and it's going to take a lot of time for a lot of kids to unlearn that in the cities that they're seeing. So, yeah.
We do talk about the impact of the shutdown on our military personnel, particularly the National Guard, who've been called up. A lot of them are leaving jobs that paid them more than their military salary, and now they're not being paid. And I went through 4 shutdowns during my 30 years, and I never once missed a paycheck. This is the first one where they have not paid the soldiers and the sailors and the airmen who are continuing to work. They don't get to stay home just because they're not being paid. They still get up and go do their stuff. And a lot of them qualify for food stamps because they don't make enough money.
Right. Thank you. Ms. Miller?
I want to say, unfortunately, what we are experiencing is us, and I'm not saying that we didn't vote, but us, you get what I'm saying? That when we feel that somebody else is going to come and rescue us, we have not educated this next generation. I wasn't educated. I know more now on this end of my life about the power of my vote than I ever knew in my life. We have the power. It is time for us to realize that if our communities are going to get better, we have to do it. We have to stop looking at race. We have to stop looking at gender and whatever your sexual orientation is, which is none of our business. And we have to pull together. If we're going to get through this, the things that society has used to divide us will continue to divide us. But if we come together the way they had to do in the civil rights movement, I'm talking about those movements that were impactful. They had to rely on each other, and they did not look at race, and they did not look at economic status and demographics. Trump is using he's doing everything that he said that he was going to do. Let me say that. He told us what he was going to do.
I believed it.
What we thought is that it was a mirage, that it could not happen. And so we have to use our voices, we have to assemble, we have to put pressure on the people that we have elected. We have to pressure them. We have to begin to educate each other on how we can have impact locally. Locally is more important to us right now. And then once we utilize and we get ourselves together, we can begin to impact state and national laws. But we have to do it together. We have to realize that when you hurt, I hurt. And it's not about black and white. And it's not about our sexual orientation. It's about being human right now. And now more than ever, my heart aches. I have grandchildren that are growing up. And I cannot predict with all my education or whatever I try to do. None of it matters right now. Whether you're a veteran and you serve, whether you got a PhD, we all are facing being hungry, a basic necessity. And so I just wanted to say that when we leave here, we talk about how we're going to leave with a plan of action. Let's leave trying to figure out how we're going to unite and what we're going to do to save what is inevitably our right. And that's to food, shelter, and water. Thank you.
One of the things that Ron and I were talking about before we kicked off was the using military as a prop. And we talked about that earlier. We talked a little bit about keg breath, peg set, whatever it's name is. Bringing in every flag officer in the military as a prop to sit there and give Donald Trump his George Patton moment. And senior NCOs, yes. Both flag officers and senior NCOs. One of the things we need to get away from, if we're to reestablish the healthy relationship that we've had, is get away from, to me, this is like the ultimate stolen valor. To me, it is somebody using the military as a prop, fetishizing it. We owe our men and women in uniform and their families more than we can ever repay. But what we can do is take action, because we, as citizens, some of us have never been in the military, but as citizens, your watch is over, your mission is over. When your mission is over, our mission begins, and that is to take care of you. Any society that's going to call itself great and going to remain great, or just not going to let that go by the wayside. Man.
Okay.
I agree.
Some more comments, sure, go ahead. You need a mic
I
now?
agree with her about, as individuals, we've got to pull together. Our son was in law enforcement. Anyway, he served about, I don't know how long, with ALE, which is a state agency. He wanted to go with FBI, but after he lived 2 years in Alexandria, and during his junior and senior college years. But anyway, he didn't like the big city. And he said, being a rookie, they'll put me in Miami, Chicago, New York, whatever.
Right.
He came back and joined the ALE. I called law enforcement, but it was a lot of drugs. And where did they send him? To Charlotte. Now, we have got to get behind our local law enforcement. He was down there 1 year, and he called one night, and he said, a lot of the agents have quit. And before, they were sending him in with another agent. to these places to do drug bursts. Okay. Agents quitting, they were sending him in with someone else, and down the street a block was another backup agent in a van, in case they need more help. He said, Mom and Dad, I'm gonna get killed down here, because they started sending him in alone. And I said, oh no, you're not. I said, I know you never wanted to be a uniform cop, but High Point just had the paper yesterday that they needed 6. Well, he went in and had to spend 5 years in hell. That's domestic calls and traffic. And then he got promoted to a plainclothes detective. But they also put ABC officer, they took that out from under auspices of the state and put it under local law enforcement. Okay, so he had that for 2 years, those 2 deals. And then they finally hired somebody to help him out in ABCs. Okay, he had 23 years in law enforcement. But as far as salary, they decided that the wife would only work 18 hours a week. She was a legal secretary and been to college for it. And so he had to work off duty. He taught at 4 community colleges, plus his duty at the police department, 4 hours. He worked at Lowe's Building Supply for 5 years to pay for a vehicle. Now, at age 47, after he worked 23 years, he had pancreatitis. He never drank, he never smoked. They put stents in for a year, and then he had to go to Duke and have surgery. Okay. He went back to work after he healed up. When he'd have those attacks, he'd put him on the ground. So he went to Duke to make up the partition between the bile duct and the pancreatic. Now, at 47, he had to go out on disability. He went back and worked 2 years, and then he had those first attacks before surgery put him on the floor. The next time, he had small attacks, and he called us one day and he said, I'm going to apply for disability because if I have a small attack and someone resists my arrest, I'm not going to be able to handle it. I'm not going to be able to protect myself. And so he did, and at 47 there, which he didn't want to quit, but he resigned and got disability in 3 months. We have got to support our local law enforcement. That's something we definitely have got to do. Don't believe everything you hear on the news. Thank you all very much.
Look like you had something.
Well, yeah, I do. I'm listening, but there's a couple of things. If you're retired and you can make it to the county commissioners at 2 o'clock, you need to be there. You need to be in city council meetings because recently our fire department had their benefits cut. And those that could have advocated, additional people that could have advocated for them, we're not there. We have a lot going on in our county commissioner meetings at 2 o'clock in the middle of the day. Where some of us, well, let's say, works. So we have our own trust issues with our local government.
Need a mic? We got a mic for you.
But I will also say this. While we're focusing on what's happening nationally, we cannot lose sight of what's happening at the state level. We got our own issues that we need to be dealing with. Many of you have heard by now. We already had a date on the calendar to come back on November 17th, but the governor has executed his right to convene us to deal with our local, our state Medicaid issue. And what a lot of people may not know is that when we were able to get Medicaid expansion passed, the caveat to continuing it was that we had to continue to get our reimbursements from the federal government. So what's going on nationally with Medicaid expansion, with Medicaid, has an effect on us, the state level. And so we've got to get a grip of that. I think what Sister Michelle said is very important. This idea about community is how we're gonna get through this. This idea that those of us who have maybe just a little more, or maybe a lot more, we are gonna have to become our brothers and sisters keeper. It means that we are gonna have to get back to, I tell people when I grew up, I didn't grow up poor. But because of some things that my parents made, I experienced poverty and childhood hunger. The difference between childhood hunger when I was growing up and childhood hunger today, we had dinner out. So if you were smart enough, you situated yourself at your friend's house between 5 and 6 o'clock. And you had enough friends in community, you're gonna get a meal, because 9 times out of 10, their parents are gonna ask you if you wanna stay for dinner. We've gotta get back to it. We've gotta hold people accountable. When you're talking about the military, let me say this. My grandfather was a merchant marine, and I know that's not,
he's in the
my great grandfather served in the World War II as a merchant marine. My daddy was career Army. My brother, one brother was career Army, served in Vietnam. My other brother is career Marines, just retired within the last 10 years. My nephew is Navy. My niece is Air Force. My other niece is Air Force. There's no area of our military branches that has not served in our family. I would have ended up in Navy.
Nobody's perfect.
Had Howard had ROTC. I did junior ROTC for 3 years. We moved here my senior year. North did not have a Navy program. I got to Howard, and if I wanted to continue, I would have had to take the bus to Georgetown. So my service to our country was in the form of what I'm doing now. So service to our country can take many different forms. But what I want to say is that as bleak as times are, and they are bleak, the good thing is that good people are rising up to say, not on our watch. When we hear, this is not who our country is. Yes, it is. It's always been. It's just that some were allowed not to deal with it face on, and some of us have always known, if we're honest about it. So what I'm going to say is that part of the charge is that if you are of a certain political affiliation, as evidenced by 3 people that won in Kernersville and the number of people that won in Louisville, if we put good, strong candidates out there to run, there should be no race that is uncontested. I think that other party has overplayed their hand. They did not realize that they, in their bubble, in their echo chamber, thinks that this craziness that they are inflicting was going to resonate. The truth of the matter is, nobody wants to be hungry. Nobody wants to lose their home. Nobody wants to lose their job. And if we put ourselves in the position to run good, strong candidates, we are going to continue to win in places where we thought there was not a chance to win. If we do our history, we will know, particularly in our rural counties, they were not always Republican leaning. So my charge is, whatever your circle of influence is, start there. Everybody wants to talk about knocking on doors. Everybody's not trained to knock on doors. Everybody's worried about what's happening in the black community. Honey, 92%. I'm part of the 92%. We gotta get in our own communities. and talk to the people that we have influence with. When you at the Circle Club, when you at the VFW, if you're Greek, if you're Eastern Star, if you're Legion, Foreign Legions, I don't know. Whatever organization you are a part of, if you are a deacon in the church, you better start talking to the pastor about doing phone banking of your members. And let's call them. And oh, by the way, while we're calling to check on your registration, how you doing? We missed you at church. Love to see you back. And put them in the van and take them to the polls. We can't go into community whenever it's election time. We're not in relationship. Right? So I'm saying start with where you're in relationship.
Yes.
Right? Who's likely to answer a phone? Somebody that's a number they don't recognize, or from somebody's number they recognize? If you don't know what to say, check with your local party. They'll give you a script. If you don't want to talk on the phone and you want to write a postcard, go down to the party. They got a whole list of people that you can send a postcard to. I call it a 3-point touch. You start with a postcard. Hey, we miss you. Would love to see you back engaged in a party or at the polls. Then you get somebody who's on the same team. Put together three people teams. You got a postcard writer, a phone call person, and somebody who's gonna knock on the doors. Second call is you get a phone call. Third touch, somebody knocking on the doors. And by the time you do those 3 things, you're gonna know that person will be ready to get in the car with you and even help you do the work. It's not hard, y'all. We try to make it too big and too unobtainable. But grassroots means just that. It's invitable chunks, doable tasks. And I'm telling you, those of us who are in Raleigh right now, is it rough? Yes. I'm not gonna tell you it's not. And the atrocious behavior that we've been witnessing in DC, now they, I've been there 5 years. And for 4 of those 5, they have tried to be very statesmanly-like. No, not anymore. They're rude, they're mean, they're nasty. And I'm just saying this, I ain't always been saved, so they need to back up off me because a different kind of person shows up when you step to me like that. So you need to know, those of us, it's 49 of us up there. We need to hold the 49 and we need to flip at least 4 or 5 more seats. Because we have some that are voting other ways. And here's what my take is on that. Let the people that elected them decide what they want to do with them. But what we need to know is where can we flip 4 or 5 seats? So like my first term where we had over 50 people, 54, 55 people, we were able to uphold Governor Cooper's vetoes 32 times. And so a lot of what we saw coming rearing back 4 years ago, we were able to hold the line. We can get those numbers again. We can hold the line. We can hold the line. So I think that what we saw in our municipal races, and I'm sorry, I gotta do what I can. I hope that we expected that because we did the work.
Yeah.
Right? So if we did the work and we saw the outcome, what's gonna happen come March 3rd? Why March 3rd? Because that's the primary. And we'll know who's gonna be where. And we'll know what we need to do. But we can do it. No seat should be left uncontested. I'm gonna say it again. Not one. And the willingness, I will say this, people have been asking me, are you gonna have a primary challenger? Why do you need to raise money? I have been challenged every year that I've run. Whether it's been a primary challenger or it's been a Republican challenger. But here's the thing that a lot of people don't know, is that whether you have a Republican or Democratic challenger, it takes money to run. Secondly, when you are a person like myself, I run as hard as I run because I know that it's gonna help everybody up and down the ballot. I travel to the other parts of our state where the candidates are not fortunate and blessed to have the kind of support that we have in Forsyth County. That's what happens. And that is what we are committed to doing as a caucus, and that is what I am committed to doing as your elected official. I'm excited for Kernersville, because I've been your representative while you guys were getting your momentum. There's never been a time that y'all not called me to come out and speak or support Kernersville. So I am glad that y'all are getting the voice, and if we can get your two representatives to have a D beside their name, so that so that when we do the Christmas parade, we can go and be arrogant. Yes.
The one thing about voting party is, when the Democrats get in office, their elite group, they tend to do the same thing that the Republican elites do. So we have to be very diligent and not just vote party, but really vote the right mindset. That one that's working for the businessman. Democrats don't really usually talk about business, the business interest that's going to grow in that community. I like the community and all getting along. We have a commonality.
Yes.
The working class has a commonality, and we need to pull into that and tap into that. And it has to be regardless of party affiliation. It just so happens that on this, where we are now, there's such a contrast.
And I will say, yes, I think you're right. And I think if you look at who's been elected over the last election cycles in DC, you see that. If you look at who's getting elected at the state level, I am super excited. The number of young people that have been elected at the state level who are under the age of 35. You're absolutely right. People look at me with my overeducated self, with all my degrees and all of my experience, but they don't know my story. See, I've been homeless. I've been on welfare not once but twice. I was a teacher living in subsidized housing, getting food stamps. So I think people's story helps inform you who they are and what they will do. So you're absolutely right. But sometimes you can't always get to that, right? And so if you can't get to the person, I just happen to live a very transparent life. And if you got problems with my story, that's your problem, it's not. But absent of being able to know who people are, you need to look at people's voting records. You need to see who their alliances are with. You need to, it takes work to be an informed voter, and you're absolutely right. Like, I will say for the next couple of years though, we do have to vote for Democrats because Republicans have shown us that they are not courageous enough to stand up against the machine. But we need to hold those candidates accountable. And I tell people, I don't shy away from a Democratic challenger. In fact, that's how it should work because it keeps us honest. So I think from both sides, I think as a voter, you have the right to demand and understand who's representing you and holding that person accountable. And as a person who's running, Jennifer and I got reacquainted. You talk to people in the school system, they're gonna say the same thing about me. She's tough, but she's fair. Transparent. I don't always get it right, but I work to do right. And so I don't have to run around, hey, vote for me, because I'm your girl. I've been in this community long enough, and my two colleagues can tell you, I was doing the work long before I ever got elected. I wasn't even looking for this. 5 years from retirement. But Shanita and Eunice will tell you that as a principal at Camel Park, I was doing work in the community. I'm still boots on the ground. I moved some things around because when Rudy called, I said it's important for me to be here. Not that I don't know where y'all live. I don't know if you can vote for me, but I do know that I'm your voice in Raleigh.
Thank you so much. Now, let's move to our last subject that we got here, which is about housing and housing security. And so, Randy and I had a talk, as we were planning this meeting. Randy said to me, there's some issues going on in Kernersville that's about gentrification. How many know what that word is? Know what that word means?
What was the word?
Yeah.
Gentrification.
Many times people will associate that with marginalized income, marginalized communities, right? Well, I'm here to tell you, and Randy will speak to this, it's not only marginalized communities. It happens in communities like Kernersville. Ron and I we were out knocking on the doors, putting out stuff in different precincts. We ran into community after community after community where they had signs up and they put in these new houses coming in, $300,000, $400,000. That's where they started. We know that they're not setting set aside for veterans or low income. We don't even build in those big places. So I'm gonna let you talk about this, right? Because I know it's passion for you. I know that you guys know that you've seen these communities being built up around you, and you know that they're pricing you and pricing us out of the home. Go ahead, Randy. Go ahead, let you have that first.
Yeah, I was talking to a coworker a few months ago, and we have an office in Nashville, and this guy was needing to find a new home, and he found himself priced out, and he ended up having to move to Bowling Green, Kentucky, to find a place he could afford. And that stuck with me, and it resonated with me. And when I come back and was looking at running for the Board of Aldermen here, I was like, you drive some of these neighborhoods and, starting at $450,000. Who in the world can afford that? Who has roots here that can afford that? And one of my hot button issues is making Kernersville. We want Kernersville to grow, but making Kernersville to where people are not forced to, people that have lived here for generations are not they cannot afford housing in here, have to go somewhere else, run people out. So, yeah, that's what I was wanting to speak to. And when it comes to Veterans Week, we also need to allow for that as well. Yeah, some set aside for.
Thank you. So we got some one here that's going to speak to that thing. So you just talk to us a little bit about WIN and what WIN is, and one of the tools that we can use as a community.
725. Thank you. I am a member of the Coalition for Accountability and Transparency, which is a grassroots organization that is started by a group of individuals, organizations. We have been working the last couple of years on campaigning what we call the Winston Wins, because when Winston-Salem neighborhoods win, the city of Winston-Salem, the county of Forsyth wins. To quote a well-known radio star who has passed, yes, we have housing issues, but what are we going to do about it? That was our thing. We are a grassroots organization. What are we going to do about this? Community benefit agreements. If you've never heard of a community benefit agreement, it is a legal binding contract between a developer and an affected community. We are pushing for a city ordinance in the city of Winston-Salem that would trigger community benefit agreements if any developer come in and they want any type of taxpayer money, land, tax credits, any of those benefits that they give, then it would trigger a community benefits agreement, which I said is a legal binding contract, not between the developer and the city, but between the developer and a community. So that is a way, in a community benefit agreement, a developer comes in, they're getting tax credits, they're getting any type of tax, any of your tax money. Then they have to sit down with the community. The community will negotiate. We want subsidized housing for veterans. We want green space. We want workforce development. And then we don't want it to be temporary jobs. We're talking about long-term jobs that pay livable salaries, not just low-paying temporary jobs. These are the type of things that you can get in a community benefit agreement. And it is a legal binding contract. That's the beautiful part about it. So, because how many of you have developers have come in, you've heard, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we work it out with the city, and it's going to happen this way, and it never happens. And nothing ever happens to the developer because it didn't happen. So, but if you have a legal contract, they have to pay. It's legally binding. So we have been pushing, we are organized, we have groups that are now behind us, that individuals behind us, that we are at the point, we have spoke with certain city council people, we are getting the push, the momentum, we are at the point where we're going to do the quote proper or the ask for the city ordinance, and we want it to be a city ordinance so it happen automatically. It'll be triggered instead of one off here. Maybe if we can work with you, because one of the things that we found out that a lot of citizens aren't aware of what's going on in zoning meetings, and that's where it starts. It starts in the zoning meetings. So if you don't know what's going on in the zoning meetings, because everything that goes in the zoning meeting ends up pretty much at city council or at the county commission's meetings, because it has to be approved as well, and they're joint. So when we have county and city zoning meetings, they have this one meeting that covers it all. So, and I sit and I watch these zoning meetings, and I see individuals saying, no, I don't want this, I don't want this. Well, it meets the standards for the plan, so it gets pushed through. Even though you have people in neighborhoods saying, this is going to be a hardship, what about this, what about traffic, what about, one of the ones I heard recently, if you've been on University Parkway, the Target, or right across the street from the Target, they bulldoze all those buildings, they build those. I remember that community that sits right there beside where those buildings were bulldozed. There's a street. They did not want those restaurants. It's going to be it's going to be like 4 buildings there. And they're like, we don't want that there in our neighborhood. It's going to increase traffic through our neighborhood. They just kept telling them all the issues it's going to cause their neighborhood. An aging neighborhood with people who in their 70s, 80s who live there forever. Well, it meets the planning, so boom. And that was the end of their voice. But with a community benefit agreement, that wouldn't have been the end of their voice. So that's why we're pushing this, because we're seeing this development happening everywhere. Everywhere. You'll see that the city and the county is doing voluntary annexation now. Especially out here where the Dale plant used to be. What's that? They're voluntarily giving up land once it's being purchased by a certain group, which the city gave them the money to purchase the land. Then they're going to annex the land into the cities. Why? So that we can pay for the infrastructure. Then they're gonna build spec buildings and get money from the city to build the spec building. And not once have they gone to anybody in that community and said, hey, all this building out here, how's it gonna affect your community? Not once have they ever said, we talked to the people in the community and they said. Any questions about it? Yes.
I wanted, if we have time, I wanted to just.
Yeah, we're gonna have, so hold on to your question. We're gonna ask questions, right after the session.
Okay, so this is a tool that the city of Kernersville, the city of Winston-Salem, the county of Forsyth, at some point the state of North Carolina, because it started in the Biden administration recently, that where the Department of Energy mandated CBAs for all their federal contracts. Y'all know what's happened to that now, right?
Yeah.
All that funding's gone. So it's up to grassroots organizations to create these CBAs to protect their communities. So that's what we're doing.
Thank you. So at the end of this meeting, we're gonna have an opportunity for you to sign up for a committee to talk to Randy and Sarah about some of these opportunities and some of these goals. Well, I talked more about that before we end. But Sarah and I talked too about how many of you know that Kernersville has a land plan? They have a plan how they're gonna develop land. How many of you know that it's written? It's out there. Yeah. Let me ask you this. How many of you know that they're gonna build a pool behind Lowe's? Yeah? Do we know what a RFQ is? Yeah. Tell us what it is.
It's where you go out to different firms and ask them basically for it's a request for requirements. You can also do an RFP that follows up with the need for requirements. So basically saying like, here are our requirements, show that you have them so that you can actually do the work, and then it's how you select the firms that you
Exactly.
go after.
So the calendar, our city alderman in Kernersville has already sent out an RFQ to build that pool. So by the time, and this is what Eunice has always said, by the time the community becomes aware, it's already on the board. It's already started to be made. So we're gonna get a pool, whether we want it or not. You know, Sarah has some opinions about that.
One way to put it nicely. So, yes, behind the Lowe's Foods on South Main Street, they are building a $12.8 million pool. This was voted on by the sitting board, and I had notes which are now all over the place. Because, okay, so, I will say, Kernersville Parks and Rec sent out a survey to residents. Some people filled it out, others didn't. I believe that they got like 438 respondents. We got 22,000 people in this town, at least. And in that, I thought it was very fascinating because they asked the question of what indoor activities would you like for the Parks and Rec to provide? And 43.21% said indoor pool. Okay, that's fine. The following question was, which of these facilities or functions shown would you like to see in the Kernersville Park system? One of those options was just pool. It didn't say indoor or outdoor. It did not clarify. And that did get like about 40% of respondents, 38% of respondents said that they wanted that. I don't know if you've ever tried to go to South Bay. I'm sure that almost everybody here has been to Target, Cookout, any of the things on that side of town. Cagney's, yeah, just right by Cagney's. Our traffic, which those roads are maintained by NCDOT, which Town of Kernersville does not regulate. We're gonna have a bunch more cars. It is also not free for residents. They plan to charge, what I heard last, which is not binding, is $2 per visit per person. I'm a family of 4. I have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. There we go, $8 a pop for us to go. There's going to be meeting space that will be able to be rented out all day, but the thing is, people didn't know about this. I didn't know about it until I started getting ready to run in July, when I was like, wait a second, what is this? Wait, that's not what the survey said. I filled out the survey. And so this is something that we're spending money on a pool. We're increasing our development hugely. They've just voted to approve 280 units on Thursday at the Board of Aldermen meeting. I was there. I spoke out against it. Priorities should be things that will benefit our community. We shouldn't have homeless veterans. We shouldn't have people going hungry. We should be able to provide for our residents without a $12.8 million construction for the pool. And I'm pretty sure we all know that that also means that we have to pay in our property taxes for the maintenance of that pool.
I'm sure there's gonna be a limit to the number of people that can fit in the pool. So all 22,000.
Maybe it could be the entire town pool now.
These things are happening all over our communities. It's happening in Louisville, Clemens, Kernersville. It's happening. So what you're just talking to us about, this is another tool that we can use to organize. Who said it? Bill said it, right? We need to get together. We need to look up, because we have the power. If we want a pool, that's fine, but they didn't ask us. Or they sent a survey out and said, well, we want an indoor pool. Well, they're building an outdoor pool, you see. It is one of the most congested neighborhoods areas. I mean, it's not a circle in it. It's the most confusing circle. I mean, it just gets confusing me. I get in there and just, where I'm going to go next, you know. I'm going to get hit, you know.
Supposedly, that park, because that's the Pope Park, is supposed to have an entrance also on Mountain Street, I think. I don't, it's
The greenway goes through it.
it's like 100 acres. I mean, it's going to be a big park, but apparently it's.
Just want to say the YMCA has 4 pools right now. I go there from time to time. There's never anybody in another lane. There's excess capacity there, so no one's just adding excess capacity.
And I believe the town has an agreement with the YMCA, or they did previously.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Oh, yeah, we got
The young lady had.
right, I know. Thank you, Rob. I appreciate you keeping me straightened out. We're at the end of our panel discussion. And we have at the end of this is we do have an opportunity for you guys to ask questions. And so I know the young lady back here has a question, she can't wait. So, Heather and Sarah, can you come up and get a mic? That way you can give them a mic. I'll give her a mic.
I'm loud. Hey, my name's Olivia. I am a representative of one of the organizations that's with Winston Wins, pushing for CBAs, again, they're community benefit agreements, right, that ordinance that we want. And one of the things that I was just gonna say, not a question, sorry, but just to tie this back to, you know, lived experiences of veteran families, right? So, I don't even know if my people I work with know this. I grew up in a cop family. My dad was in the WSPD, Winston Police for 15 years. He was an MP prior to that, in the Army. And pretty much everybody in my family has been military. One of the relevant points is my grandfather, who lived in Winston for the last 30, 40 years of his life, was a Vietnam vet. Died of cancer from Agent Orange back in 2020. And I grew up very closely under him and in his house, right? They would pick me up from school on a regular basis, take care of me, whatever. And I guess one of the things that I just want wanted to point out about the value, the potential value of CVAs in Winston and in Kernersville, just in Forsyth County in general, is, you know, growing up in a military family that, yes, has all of the valor attached to it, yes, has the honor attached to it, but also has the trauma that comes with that. You know, the things that I inherited as the daughter of a police officer who was also a veteran, of a Vietnam vet. A lot of it was very valuable lessons. A lot of it was also learning that we really don't know how to process a lot of the trauma that we've inherited as a result of military service, right? And as a result of policing. And so one of the things, when I think about CVAs and the value of it, I think about, in Winston-Salem, we have the BEAR team. It's supposed to be like our mental health emergency responders. And I would love to see something like the BEAR team extended all across Forsyth County. I'd love to see it something that's permanently funded. Right now it's just grant funded, and we don't know if that's going to fall through once federal grants no longer care about mental health care, which is already happening. I would have loved to have seen, you know, my grandfather who struggled with just coping with what he saw from Vietnam, have access to something and say, not only do I have, you know, the VA benefits that I've got, but I also have a publicly funded resource where I can just call somebody, and whether it's on a phone call or whether they come to the house, and I just need to talk about, can you connect me to, is there a veterans mental health resource somewhere in Forsyth County? Is there a VFW that I'm not a part of that could maybe support me and people that I could talk to on a regular basis to work through this? You know, is there just any resources that exist, right? It doesn't, a lot of it, yes, of course, comes down to housing, food, the absolute minimum basics of human survival, right, that we all deserve. But I think it can also extend into the public services that really make life quality, and make it quality for the people, the children that we're raising, right? So I just wanted to speak to that.
Yes, they are some locations that do that. They have you have to build and put into a housing fund. You have to, a CVA could say you have to give so many dollars to local schools. You could mandate that the CVA supports veteran housing, mental health resources. Example, Durham right now is the city of Durham, or an organization in Durham, is fighting Durham, the hospital there, because hospitals pay how much in taxes? Nothing. So they're trying to do a CBA in lieu of taxes. The hospital in Duke University would have to pay certain, it's like $50+ million that goes into a fund, and it's in lieu of taxes. Now, how many of us are going to really benefit from the grounds that is being built by Wake Forest? In lieu of taxes, because they pay how much taxes? Zero. And they bought that property, they're buying property across the street, so now that they're buying property that used to be tax-based, and now because it is purchased by them, that tax-based property is now non-tax-based property. So we're losing money on, they were paying city and county taxes. So everybody, even in Kernersville, is going to feel that loss because you are in the county. Okay? And when we look at, and I was sitting, I'll say this quickly, I was at a meeting, a city council meeting, and the city manager at that time put up a chart of tax-based, all the cities, the large cities in North Carolina, and how they ranked on how much tax or non-tax property is in each city. How are we number one? That means that there's more non-taxable property in Winston-Salem than in Charlotte, Raleigh, Durham? How are we number one? So that means that's why it's hard for us to catch up, because our citizens don't make enough money to make up that loss of property tax. And we won't, because these people of these universities, well, our university, our largest university, is buying more property.
In all fairness, though, let's be clear. Let's be fair. We got 3 more.
Yes, yes.
So let's be fair. Drake is the biggest one.
Right?
We have 4 universities who are nonprofits,
No.
who are buying up properties who are not paying taxes.
Yes, we have it's not just Wake, it's also, the School of the Arts. They're buying property around that, with Salem State, buying what little property they can, because they kind of landlocked right there, but they're still buying. But when we talk about the major players, we're talking, even Atrium Health, they're buying their property and stuff. I live on the north side of town, right beside Wake Forest. I drive through the neighborhoods, people got these signs, more neighborhoods, less university. That's what they have actual yard signs posted up.
And I was on 25th Street and found it offensive that Boston Thurman, which is one of our oldest historically black communities, has detail. It is not detail. It's Boston Thurman. And so it's disrespectful. And I think to piggyback on what Mr. Eunice is saying, is if we don't find ways to generate additional monies, taxpayers, there will not be enough taxpayer dollars. That's why we see a decrease in services. That's why we're having to cut our fire department up. That's why we can't recruit more police officers. That's why we can't pay teachers larger salaries. Because we don't have the replenishment of the lost tax base. And so that's why what she's saying is even more important about how do we generate the resources to take us to a viable city, because right now we're not. It's only viable for certain people.
How many of you here know how our schools are funded?
Say that again?
How many of you know how our schools are funded? Yeah. Okay. So, in case you're not sure, it has to do with something with property tax. Somewhat. Yeah. So we lose the tax revenue, then our schools are impacted by that.
Right, because the 2 biggest things that the county commissioners are responsible for is building and facilities and teacher supplements. Those are the 2 biggest things. But to spiral out, what Eunice is saying locally applies to the state. So as we're having these larger companies come in, and we have a strong desire on behalf of the majority party to take businesses to a 0% tax base, we will see that play out across the state. So we're already defunding our public education systems, right? We are already seeing that we have hospitals closing in our rural areas. We are already seeing a decrease in benefits for our veterans at the VA hospitals, because even though they're federal facilities, a lot of what they get done in terms of property and that piece often depends on what they get from the state. So this, what Eunice is saying, also has statewide implications. And as we continue to see an increase in homelessness here, we continue to see an increase in violence and crime, all of that is directly related to us not having a plan to build our tax base, to recruit businesses, to bring other. When I moved here with my mama in '81, this was a vibrant city because you had people, my mother didn't go past third, fourth, or fifth grade, but worked for Brown and Wilson and made a good living. When we moved here, 2 families worked at Reynolds. Those families had an upper middle class lifestyle because their parents made good money, they had home ownership, you had stability of community. So I don't live far from Evanston, I live in Boston, Thurman. I remember when that area was vibrant. So it's local, but it blooms out.
Thanks, everybody. We don't want to, not give anybody any opportunity. So if anybody has some things they want to talk about, I think it's pretty good discussion. Yeah.
I can take 3 minutes. My name is Wes Cole. I'm running for Congress in the 10th district. I don't know if anybody here is in the 10th. I know that Forsyth County was gerrymandered between the 6th and the 10th. So if you're in Kernersville, you're probably in the 6th district. But I wanted to kind of bring it back to the topic that we came here for. And one of my biggest complaints as a citizen is that our government leadership in Washington, especially being from Yadkin County and growing up under Virginia Fox, is that nobody has anything good to say about what she does. But when you ask people, even Republicans, why they vote for her, it's, well, she does a lot for veterans. Well, I couldn't get an appointment at the VA, but I called down there and she got me an appointment at the VA. I'm not going to sit here and give you my platform as a candidate for Congress, but I will say this. I was taught in school, and I read in books and watched on the History Channel that we made promises as a country to our veterans for the services that you guys provide. And when I hear that a reason that somebody votes for someone, I don't care what party it is because they were able to get me an appointment at the VA, I have a serious problem with that. I think that our VA should work in a way that if you need an appointment and you're a veteran, that you go there and you walk your hind end in there and you get what you need. And the fact that you need to call a congressman or a congresswoman in order to get that appointment is a travesty. So I wanted to get up here and just introduce myself. I have some stuff if you're interested in my campaign or have any questions, I'll step to the side when we're finished. But I think that it's important that veterans are given the respect that they deserve, and that those promises that we made as a country to our veterans and our military, we uphold those. And if I get a chance to go to Washington, that will be one of my biggest objectives, is to make sure that the systems that have been put in place work as they should, and it doesn't require calling someone in Washington, D.C. in order to be taken care of when you've given so much for our country. So all the veterans here, thank you very much for your service, and it's an honor to be speaking. Thank you.
Okay, fellow citizens, we did say that at the end of this meeting we will have an ad for you that are Kernersville residents. We want you to sign up on a sheet back there. Heather got a sheet, I'm sure you'll find it. To work on this task force, to talk about CBAs, other issues that we might be having. And we'll leave your phone number and we'll give you a call. Because you will be familiar with 2 of our city aldermen, because you met us tonight. And that's what we'll take that report to. I want to thank you guys very, very much. Camel City United really appreciates you for coming out. We have some cupcakes that Sue and her group brought us. If you have not signed in, make sure you do so. We want to make sure that we know some thank you. And unless there's something that someone else needs to say, Marcy, go ahead.
Can I just introduce myself, just like every other candidate here in this?
Yeah, go ahead.
My name is Marcy West, and I'm running for County Commissioner in District B, which includes Kernersville, as well as Louisville, Clemens, Tobaccoville, Rural Hall. It's a giant donut. And so I think that it's really important to listen to our citizens. Right now, the county commission, as Amber mentioned, meets at 2:00 in the afternoon. There've been a lot of people who've come out and said we really don't like that, and they're like, we don't care. Yeah, we don't think that's a big deal. They deigned to give us 4 evening meetings, and the final evening meeting is 1 week before Christmas. So I'm sure that it's really going to be well attended. But I think that it's important that we get somebody on that committee that has a finance background. There is no one right now on the county commission that has a finance background. A major responsibility of that is to manage the budget, oversee the budget, make sure that that money's being spent well, set the tax rate. And so I have actually done that before in another community. I want to take my experience professionally in finance and in local government and make it work for us. Thanks.
Can you remind us when that vote is? Can you remind us when that election is, when we do show up?
When is that, county? The
Oh,
county commission?
it's gonna be November 26th, so same time as the rest of the. Primary will be in March, right.
Do you have a primary?
Although, there will be a primary in March, and, it may not be March, is what I hear from the Board of Elections. It could get moved out because they've done the change in the map, so. Right now it's March, could be a different time. Keep your ears open.
I want to add one thing, that Town of Kernersville does have a planning board meeting, I think, on Monday, with another 200 and something unit thing. Just so you know.
I would like to encourage you to take a cupcake home.
No cupcake left behind.